Okay, sit yourself onto your lift and come into a good cross-legged position. Just sitting in a comfortable cross legs, just have a little wriggle about. Just make sure that you feel even and balanced at the seat bones. So just listen to the sound of your breath as it enters and as it exits. Lift the chest up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Sorry, something is bouncing up and down in mine. Take deep inhalations and deep exhalations. Just focusing on the sound of the in-breath and the sound of the out-breath. Softening your jaw and your tongue and your throat. After you've been there for a little while, just observe. Do you feel evenly balanced? Or can you have a wriggle about? Just make sure that you feel even. Just close your eyes and observe your center of balance. Softening the jaw and the tongue and the throat. Release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste. Press the palms firmly together. Lengthen from your armpits into your elbows. Focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and exhalations. Gently draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. And then hold on to that feeling of abundance in the heart area. And then just bring your hands down to meet your knees. Palms facing upwards, index finger and the in contact. And then raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Hold on to your, elevating the heart area upwards, drawing your shoulders down. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right side. Drawing your abdomen across and your ribs and your shoulders. And then come back to the center, lift up into your chest, elevating the heart area upwards, drawing your shoulders down. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then with the exhalation, turn across to the right. Just waking up the spine. Just breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, using the out breath to intensify the turn. And then come back to the center. Just come off your lift and then just sit on your heels for a moment. Sit back on your heels with your knees apart. Just observe the feeling of relaxation that comes into the legs when you sit back on your heels, which, if this is the first time you're doing it, you won't feel that, but once you're used to sitting back on your heels, this becomes a really good reviving action for your legs. So Kat, you've been on a long walk. This is a good way of just refreshing your legs. Push the shins into the floor consciously, activating the thighs, lifting up into the heart area, and then come forwards, stretching forwards, and then spread your fingers. Keep your head lifted as you come forwards and down. And finally, bring your forehead down onto the floor. Hitting the seat bones down on the heels. Lengthening into the palms, lengthening into your arms, spreading your fingers, spreading your palm. Come up onto your knees, turn your toes under, and then come up into dog down. So if you came up with straight legs, bend your knees a little so that you can tilt the seat bones and the tailbones up towards the tailbone up towards the ceiling, and then reactivate your legs. Tighten the kneecaps, hit the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. Breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Again, a good action for tired legs. Push the fronts of the thighs through to the backs. Turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. Drawing the backs of the thighs, broadening them outwards so that you get space in the hips. Keeping the kneecaps tightened. Lifting the shins away from the floor. Turning the fronts of the shins inwards so that the heels start to separate. Turning the inner knees towards the wall behind you. And then step your feet forwards and then come up into standing position. And then get a couple of blocks for your hands. And bring your feet as wide apart as the mat. Lift your feet up out of the heels, lift up into the shins, into the kneecaps, into the thighs. Lifting the inner leg from the inner heel all the way up towards the inner groin. Again, turning the thighs inwards, have the hands on the hips, wing your elbows towards each other behind you. Lift in your heart area. And then hinge at the hips. And then reach down and find the blocks. Again, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, pushing the kneecaps through to the backs of the knees, turning the inner knees towards the back of the room, pushing the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs. Broadening the backs of the thighs outwards so that you can pick up the seat bones, lifting the tailbone, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. Come down a little lower if your back will allow it. Stay on the higher lift if it won't. Keep the legs straight. Aim to get the kneecaps to tighten. Projecting the chin and the chest forwards. If you can come down to the floor, then do. Projecting the chin and the chest forwards. Tightening the kneecaps, lifting the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. Hitting the shins back. Projecting the chin and the chest forwards. And then, if you can, bring your thumbs into the crease of the elbows, wrap your fingers around your elbows, and then hang down. Or stay in uttanasana, in half uttanasana, if there is a problem with your back. So keep activating the legs, tightening the kneecaps, lifting the thighs, turning the fronts of the legs inwards to the backs of the legs, broaden outwards. And then release your hands down to the floor. Bring your hands into your hips. Bend your knees on the way up if you need to. And then come up into a standing position. And up into Tadasana. So lift up into Tadasana. Feel the feet connecting to the floor. Lifting up into the chest. Just find your balance. Maybe it doesn't come straight away. So breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, straightening the legs. Can you tighten the kneecaps, turn the inner knees towards the back of the room. Tuck the tailbone in. Spread your toes. Hit your weight back into your heels. Hitting the shins back. Hitting the thighs back. Turning the fronts of the legs really consciously inwards. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step or jump nice and wide with your legs. Turn your left toes in, your right leg and foot all the way out, and then come over into trikonasana. So as you come over into trikonasana, observe how the body moves itself into the pose, where your weight goes. As your weight just collapsed into that front leg, can you activate that back leg, pushing from the hip into the heel, into the little toe side of the foot, turning the thigh out a little. Can you feel where your body is in 3 dimensions? Can you feel the alignment of the front leg hip in relation to the feet, in relation to the heels? Try and bring that front leg buttock bone forwards a little, hit the back leg towards the back of the room. Turning the chest to face the ceiling. Come back to the centre, swap the feet around, turn the right legs in, right leg in, the right toes in slightly, the left leg and foot all the way out. Again, just feeling your feet are in the right alignment. So remember, this foot that turns outwards, the heel needs to line up with the instep of that back foot, or the toes, or even beyond it if you've got stiff hips. So just feel, is that the case? Have a quick look. Make sure it is. So as you come down onto the other side, really activate this back leg. Activate the back leg because it gives you length into the spine as you come down. Reaching down, turning the chest. Keeping that front leg straight. Can you tighten that kneecap cat and that left leg? Turning the chest. Looking up. Just feel in 3 dimensions where the body is. Where the hip, that front leg hip is in relation to the heels. And you stretch the chest up to the ceiling. Breathe in and out through the nose. And then come back to the centre, bring your feet parallel, and then step or jump the feet back together, just come back into Tadasana. Just breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. Okay, we're going to do uttanasana, but with the feet together. So you'll probably need blocks. If you know that you struggle when your feet are apart to come forwards, have a higher lift. So have like a chair or whatever. In fact, let's all start with a chair. If you've got a chair handy, have a chair rather than the blocks. Because when you do uttanasana with the feet apart, it gives you loads of space in the hips. When you do it with the feet together, a bit more restrictive in the hips, so you have to work those legs more determinedly. So have a chair in front of you, and then just be in Tadasana, facing the chair. So Tadasana is an action of activating the kneecaps, activating the thighs, hitting the shins back, but really significantly it's also turning the fronts of the thighs inwards from the little toe side to the big toe side. That's an essential part of this pose, because if you don't do that, then coming forwards you kind of lose the battle straight away. So tighten the kneecaps, turn the thighs in, broaden in there. Just turn the legs the other way, and then maybe you feel that the buttock flesh clenches and it kind of rotates inwards. If you turn the fronts of the legs out from the little toe side to the big toe side, maybe you feel this feeling of broadening in the buttock area. So lift up into the chest, turn the fronts of the thighs inwards, tuck the tailbone in slightly, and then raise your arms up. And then hinge at the hips, come forwards, hinging at the hips, have your hands on your hips if you've got a bad back, and then reach down and find the top of the chair. And this is probably way too high for most of you, but you know, it's good to be too high than to be too low. So again, turn the fronts of the thighs, turn them really distinctly, the fronts of the thighs inwards, and then see if you can pick up the seat bones lift the front chest, lifting from the abdomen to the diaphragm to the collarbone to the chin, keeping the head lifted. And then maybe see if you can slide your hands down the floor, down the chair legs. So stop when you kind of get to the point where this has to happen. So keep the legs straight, keep the chin and the chest forwards. Maybe you can reach your blocks, so then you can just move the chair out of the way a little. Let's come down, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. If you can come down lower, then do. Find where your body is kind of telling you where to stop, and make sure that you stop at that point. So lift in the front chest. So even if you come down all the way to the floor, keeping the chin and the chest lengthening forwards, keeping the abdomen driving forwards into the chin. If you can, you walk your hands so that the fingernails are in line with the toenails, and you try and bring the heels down, but all keeping the legs straight, keeping the chest extending away, bringing the palms down, and then you can bring the chest down towards the legs, keeping those thighs turning inwards. So just breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, just coming into the pose wherever it feels appropriate for you. And then bring your hands back onto the higher lift, and then come up into Tadasana, and then just reactivate the arms and the legs in Tadasana. Listening to the breath, listening to the in-breath and the out-breath. Softening the jaw and the tongue and the throat. Okay, so we're going to stay with the chair, but I want you to bring the chair kind of that way round, so at the back of the chair, or if it's just a stool or whatever, just keep it where it is. And then we're going to do a similar action. It's like half uttanasana, but then we're going to go into a version of Virabhadrasana 3. So you need to have the inner edge of your feet together, and then lift up into the chest, hinging at the hips, and then you bring the fleshy side of the little finger hand down onto the floor. So you find that initial distance. So just see if you can find your initial distance. So you can use a tabletop if the chair isn't any good. Just find something so that you're going to be able to rest your arms on there. So when you find this initial stage, your legs shouldn't be leaning forwards. They shouldn't be kind of significantly leaning back like this. Find a place where they're kind of perpendicular to the floor, and you can keep lifting up in the chest. And then once you've found your distance, come up into a standing position. Where you are there isn't going to work, because you're going to stretch your leg back in a bit, and you'll kick your foot into the wall. So to turn, so you've got wall space behind you. So you can just do it in front of the camera or whatever. So just come up into the pose, into Tadasana, sorry, and then have your hands on your hips. Lift up into the chest, and then hinge at the hips. Come forwards, lengthening forwards, and then bring your little finger side of the hands firmly down onto the chair. So the palms are spread, the thumbs are stretching up towards the ceiling. So beyond the palms in, I think you're going to get stuck there as well. You've got a wall behind you. So because what we're going to do in a moment is this. You're going to raise that leg up. So you need to be somewhere where you've got that space to do that behind you. So the palms, so it's the little finger side of the hand. So it's not the wrists or the arms, it's the palm, it's the little finger side of the hand. So just be in this first stage, this half uttanasana stage, lengthening into the chest, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Spread the toes deeply of the left foot and then raise up the right leg. Try and keep the hips level by keeping that lifted leg turning from keeping the front of the thigh turning inwards. Keeping the hips level, lifting the chest, keeping that leg straight, tightened at the kneecap. Turning the toes down to face the floor. Lifting the chest, looking forwards. Never dropping the head, looking forwards. And then release, just bring the feet back to the centre and then come back up into Tadasana. So, what did you notice with the foot that you left behind? Was the foot that you left behind in a perfect kind of Tadasana footstep, or had the leg turned out to the side? So my foot had turned out to the side because I was paying attention more to that lifted leg than to the standing leg. So this Tadasana action at the beginning is important because it's leaving the footprint on the floor. So let's do the other side. Lift up into the chest, hinge at the hips, and then find the back of the chair. Lengthening the legs away from the chair, keeping the head lifted. Spread the toes of that right foot, and then lift the left leg. Keeping that, so we don't want to do this where the hip becomes higher. We want to rotate that lifted leg. Rotate the lifted leg. Look at the foot on the floor as it moved. Try and readjust it if it has. Keep the hips level, keep the head lifted, looking forwards. Pointing into the heel rather than pointing the toes. Flexing the heel. Okay, bring the leg back down. And then just come back up into Tadasana, lifting up into the chest. Just breathing. Even deep inhalations and exhalations. Focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate breaths. Stretch your arms forwards, interlock your fingers right into the webbing of the hands and turn the palms all the way out, raising your arms up. Squeezing the outer elbows in. Swap the interlock of the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms over your head. And then gently release your arms and come back into Tadasana. And then gently release, just move the chair out of the way. And then come down onto all fours. And just bring yourself up into dog down. Let your head hang down. Just feel, have your hands shoulder width apart, your feet hip width apart. And then activate your legs like you're still in that half uttanasana with the arms on the chair, hitting the legs away, keeping that length of the front chest. This time you can drop your head. Just breathing even. Deep inhalations and exhalations, drawing the navel towards the spine to protect the lumbar. then sit back onto your heels, have the big toes together, the knees apart, and then just sit back on your feet for a moment, just observing how your energy has changed. Focusing on the softness of your jaw, softness of your throat. Listen to the breath as it enters and as it exits. And then come forwards, sitting back on your heels, stretching forwards into your arms, spreading the fingers, spreading the palms. Even to keep the seat bones down on the heels. So maybe move your knees apart a little if you can't get the seat bones down, or put a block or a blanket between seat bones and the heels, keeping the legs extending away. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders, and then sit back on your heels, lifting up into the chest. And then just bring yourself into cross legs, just sitting directly on the floor or on a lift if you sink in cross legs. Hold on to your knees. Just lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards, drawing your shoulders down. Just close your eyes for a moment, just observe your energy. Draw your chin forwards and down, making connection between the chin and the chest. Jalandhara bandha. Incorporate Mula bandha by raising the anal sphincter up towards the diaphragm region. Fill your lungs from the bottom to the top. Empty your lungs from the top to the bottom. And then release Mula bandha, release Jalandhara bandha. Just raising your head. Just a few inhalations and exhalations with those energy locks, just to keep your energy in the physical body, lift up into the chest, and then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across your ribs and your shoulders across. And then come back to the center, lift up into the chest, and then turn to the left. Drawing your abdomen across your ribs and your shoulders, just wringing out the spine. Just wringing out the toxins that you accumulate around the vertebra of the spine. And then gently come back to the center. And then come down onto your back. Come down onto your back and into supta baddha konasana. Have the feet together, the knees apart. Use blocks underneath your outer thighs if the hips are stiff. And then raise your arms up, interlock the fingers right into the webbing of the hands and turn the palm all the way out. Raising the arms up to the ceiling, keeping the outer shoulder blade region down on the floor if you can. And then lengthening the arms along the floor. If there's stiffness in your shoulders and you can't get your hands to the floor, then put blocks or a folded blanket underneath your hands. Maybe you found it difficult to bring your arms down to the floor when your shoulder blades are flat on the floor. But it's just about finding openness in the shoulders. So maybe we create new challenges by connection with the ground, by focus. Listen to the breath. Keep the outer shoulder blade region down on the floor. And then raise your arms up, turn the palms all the way out, and then interlock the fingers right into the webbing of the hands, turn the palms to the ceiling, and then lengthen your arms along the floor. Bring your hands back up and then release your elbows onto the floor. Rest your hands on your lower ribs. And then just bring your hands to the sides of your hips, bend your knees in towards the chest, and then elevate your legs up to the ceiling. Just for viparita, karanhi, turning the legs like you were doing in tadasana. Pushing into the heels, pulling the toes down to the floor. Just listen to the breath. If you've got a bad back, just stay with your legs in the air. But if you haven't, then keep the right leg in the air and then just gently bring that left leg down to the floor, keeping it straight. So we're in that same or similar position as Virabhadrasana 3. Keeping one leg up, stretching the other leg down. The leg that's along the floor is the one we were lifting. The lifted leg is the standing leg. So the standing leg in this situation is the harder one to activate, isn't it? Just bring that left leg back and then keep the left leg where it is and then bring the right leg down. Pushing into the heels, turning the thighs inwards. Holding onto the sides of the mat to keep the chest lifted. So if you let go of your arms and stretch them out along the floor, then we've got that Virabhadrasana 3 shape, but obviously gravity is different. Bring the legs back, bring the arms back, and then just bend your knees, bring the feet back down onto the floor, have the feet apart, the knees together for a moment, just resting your legs into the floor. And then just rock yourself up into a seated position, just sitting up in crossed legs, and then gently turn to the right side. And come back to the center and turn to the left. And then back to the center. And then get your blanket underneath your head. Just lay yourself in a really good straight line right down the center of the mat. And then just allow yourself to release into the floor. Focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate breaths. Allowing the body to just release into the floor, observing your energy, radiating from the bones into the muscles and the organs and the flesh and the skin. All the way down into the toes, into the fingers and up into the top of the head. you're ready to disturb yourself, just wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers. And then bend your knees, bring your knees into your chest, have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then gently roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into seated position. And then come into cross legs. With your hands in Namaste, just a final spinal lift. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. Spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside, drawing the breath in through the nose down into the abdomen. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you really lifted your energy and given yourself good, positive energy to go into your day. Thank you very much for joining me.